Hi guys, my name's Charles, and this is the first in a series of videos I'm releasing documenting the process of installing a Harrop Supercharger and a bunch of supporting mods you're going to see listed up on the screen on my 2023 GR86. Before I started installing this kit, I looked on YouTube to see if anybody had done any install videos, and I couldn't really find anything, so I figured it'd be worthwhile for me to make one myself while I was doing all this anyway. To get disclaimers out of the way up front, I am not a professional mechanic, and I'm probably even further away from being a professional videographer, so you'll see me make some mistakes along the way, and I apologize in advance for steps where there's either bad footage or no footage. I was really just working with my GoPro and my cell phone by myself, so my ability to capture things was somewhat limited. You're also going to notice there's some videos where I'm in short sleeves and others where I'm in a heavy winter coat. I started this project in the middle of the summer of 2025, and I'm just now starting the car for the first time in February of 2026. That isn't because this is some super involved 300-hour process. I just had basically no free time for the second half of 2025, and the little free time I have had has often come in, 20 to 60 minute blocks where I just couldn't get a whole lot of work done all at once. If nothing goes wrong, you can realistically expect to do this install by yourself as an amateur with all the proper tools in probably 2 full 10 to 12 hour days. If you are going to tackle it solo by yourself, I'd recommend buying or renting a shop crane. The Supercharger weighs a good 40 pounds, and trying to wrestle a bulky 40-pound Supercharger into an engine bay where it has very tight clearances with AC lines, fuel lines, and wiring harnesses without damaging anything would be a pretty tough job. I'm planning on releasing these videos as a 5 or 6 part series. This first one is going to cover basic preparatory steps to make sure the install goes smoothly, and also removing the intake manifold. I hope you guys enjoy, and if you have any feedback or suggestions on things that would make the rest of this video series better, I'd love to hear them, so let me know. Thanks.
So something you're going to want to do before you even get under the hood of the car is updating the firmware on the GJP IO box. Assuming you're going flex fuel, which I would definitely recommend for anybody who's boosting their car, or really anybody who's tuning it. Even if you're staying NA, you get a lot more power with the flex fuel, and the added octane is nice for knock resistance. So to update it, you just have a little USB port on the back, USB-C. It's covered by a rubber plug that you can remove with tweezers, and you can just follow the instructions on the GJP website on how to update the firmware. It's a very easy process. All right, another thing we're doing is installing a boost controller. It uses the recirc valve on the Supercharger in concert with a solenoid that's hooked up to the ECU through the GJP IO box in order to manage boost. The boost controller does not come installed in the harness for the IO box by default. It has its own harness that we need to install by putting the pins into the harness. It goes in pins 24 and 25. Pin 26 is right here. So these are the locations that it needs to go. First thing we need to do is unlock the harness. So we flip it over so we have these 3 white dots showing. Push in those 2 on the end. That will unlock the harness and let us push these pins out. So I'm just using a little Allen key for this. You can use any sort of pin tool in order to do it. So slide it in, press out the blanks. There we go. Blanks are out. And for the boost solenoid harness, polarity does not matter. It does not matter which harness, which slot each of these pins goes into. Just have to slide it all the way in. Go. Right. And you should feel a little positive click when those are fully engaged. Gentle pressure, not going anywhere. Push those two white tabs down to lock it into place. Press here. There we are. Now we've got the harness installed, and it can be hooked up back into the I/O box and into the boost controller solenoid. So something I'd recommend doing, either before installing the flex fuel kit, or even if you're just going to be installing the supercharger itself, is depressurizing the fuel system. You're going to have to disconnect fuel lines, and if the car has been run or even just put in ignition on recently, there will be pressure in the fuel system and it will spray gasoline all over the place when you disconnect the fuel lines. The way you can do that is to pull this second 20 amp fuse right here. Now, the fuse box has a little fuse pulling tool in it, very easy to use. Pinch to open, grab the fuse, and wiggle it right out. There you go. After the fuse is removed, you just turn the car on, run it until it stalls. Try to crank it over a few times just to make sure the fuel is really cleaned out, and then yeah, you've depressurized the fuel system. At that point, you can disconnect the negative battery terminal from the car. After that, you can reinstall the fuse and you're good to go. In the front wheel well, you've got 3 pop clips between the bumper and the fender liner to undo. After the pop clips are out, I'm going to pull back the fender liner so that we can disconnect the wiring harness for the side marker light. It's a simple push and pull to get out the connector. Underneath the front bumper, there's a series of pop clips that have to be removed in order to take it off. One small one on either end, and then a series of larger ones in the middle. On the top of the engine, we have a series of 10mm bolts and some pop clips. If you're using a tow hook, that'll have to come off. Once the tow hook and all the connectors are removed, you're going to slide your fingers underneath the fender liner, grip the bumper near the top, pull, and it'll pop right out. You can pick it up by the middle to easily support it. The intake manifold cover can be removed by just grabbing it with your hands and pulling it off. Next, we need to remove everything attached to the intake manifold, holding it into the engine bay. This includes things like wires, harnesses, vacuum lines, fuel lines, all that kind of stuff. I started off by removing everything that was easy to access located above the fuel injector covers and worked my way down. As far as tools go, you'll see me using just my hands and a flathead screwdriver a lot. For some of the more stubborn clips and connectors, I did use a low-profile pry tool, a pick tool, or sometimes both to help get them off. There are also some nuts and bolts that will require sockets or wrenches to remove. Some of those nuts and bolts are in pretty tight spaces, so unless you've got very small hands, ratcheting wrenches would probably be very useful to have around. To get the ECU out of the way, just grab it and lift it up. It'll pop out of its mounts and you can slide it out of the way. Removing the throttle body wiring harness was a bit of a pain. This was in part because I didn't have a lot of slack in the wire and I was working at a very odd angle. This might actually be easier to do if the throttle body were still bolted onto the intake manifold. I did eventually manage to get it off by using a flathead screwdriver to pry at the clip while I pulled on the harness. Here you see me put two little rubber plugs down on the engine block. I use these to plug the coolant lines attached to the throttle body after I remove them. Next up, it's time to disconnect the fueling system. I used a flathead screwdriver to open up the clamps on the fuel lines, and then had some shop towels handy when I pulled them off to blot up any residual fuel. We already released fuel pressure in the earlier step with the fuse box, but still don't want to spill gasoline all over the place, and there could be a little bit left in there. While I was doing this, I also disconnected the evap solenoid and disconnected the fuel injector wiring harnesses. I started on the driver's side of the car and then worked my way over to the passenger side. I did it this way because there are more lines to disconnect over on the driver's side. On the passenger side, you only need to disconnect the crossover pipe at the front of the fuel rail.